What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series driver lineup. We're going to talk about the full-time entries, the part-time entries, and all the potential entries that could show up in 2023. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. Let's begin by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. Ross Chastain will return to the one car in 2023. Ross Chastain in 2022 had a very strong season, scoring 2 victories and making it to the championship 4. He looks to build on that, have a really strong year, and Ross Chastain looks to have a really strong and confident year heading into 2023. Let's see what happens. Up next, how about the 2 car for Team Penske? Austin Cindric once again returned to the 2 car in 2023. Austin Cindric in 2022 scored 1 win, but of course was in the Daytona 500 and made it to the round of 12. Austin Cindric looks to build on that by trying to win multiple races. He could win multiple races this year. He could be a championship threat as well. He's one to watch for sure. He might go back-to-back in Daytona 500 and he'll be looking to win more races in 2023. Up next, how about the 3 car for Rich Childs Racing? This will once again be driven by Austin Dillon, who signed a multi-year contract extension through 2025. Austin Dillon has a really strong year. Had a pretty good year last year where he ended up scoring and winning the Daytona 500 and was able to make the playoffs, but unfortunately got eliminated in the round of 16. Austin looks to build on that with a new teammate coming in 2023. He looks to build on that, looks to have a much more confident season, and he looks to be up front more consistently in the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 4 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Kevin Harvick, but this is going to be Kevin Harvick's final year in the NASCAR Cup Series. At the end of 2023, he's going to retire officially from NASCAR. Kevin Harvick will be looking to build on last year. Last year, he scored 2 victories. It's kind of a little bit of a disappointing year. He looks to go out swinging, looks to win his second NASCAR Cup Series championship, and end the year on a really strong note. He looks to have a great year in his final NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson had a little bit disappointing year for his standards, but Kyle Larson still ended up scoring 3 victories and unfortunately got eliminated in the round of 12 after making a mistake at the Charlotte Roval. Kyle Larson looks to be a championship threat in 2023, continuing really strong years over the last couple of years, and he looks to have a great year heading into the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 6 car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski had kind of a disappointing year in 2022, but near the end of the year, he really showed signs of improvement where he started to be up front a little bit more consistently. He had a top 5 at Homestead, was looking to have a top 5 at Martinsville, but unfortunately got DQ. Got a 100-point penalty throughout the year. Brad Keselowski looks to already have a much better season, a much better year up front. Hopes to be up front a lot more consistently and bring the RFK team back to the front like they used to be back in the late 2000s and up front more consistently. Up next, how about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie had a disappointing season. Outside of contending for the victory at Atlanta Motor Speedway, it was a very bad year for Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie finished 31st in the Cup Series standings and looks to have a much better year, but did have a disappointing season. I'm not sure how Corey LaJoie is going to do, but he hopes to improve this year. He wants to finish around 21st to 23rd in points as a target for them. We'll see what happens going into 2023. Up next, how about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing? There's a new driver in the 8 car in 2023 as the Candyman. Kyle Busch moves away from Joe Gibbs Racing to drive the 8 car for 2023. Kyle Busch, of course, will have a new crew chief this year, that being Randall Burnett, and he's got new sponsors and funding. Net spent 3 Cheddars, you name it, will sponsor Kyle Busch throughout the season. Kyle Busch looks to have a much better year. When Kyle Busch is hungry and wants to perform and determine, he's extremely dangerous on the racetrack, which I think that's going to be one thing these drivers are going to have to watch out for on the racetrack. He looks to be a threat, looks to be consistent, and I think Kyle Busch is going to be a championship threat with Rich Childs Racing. I'm very confident he will be a championship threat. Up next, how about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott, who at the beginning of 2022 signed a multi-year contract extension through 2027. Chase Elliott had a really strong year in 2022, scoring 5 victories, but unfortunately near the end of the year, he kind of fell off. I think Chase Elliott will have a bounce-back year, and I think he will be a championship threat in that number 9 car. I expect him to be up front a lot throughout the season. I think that 9 car is going to be really strong. They made some changes to the front nose of the Chevys, and I think he will be very fast for 2023. Watch out for Chase Elliott this season. Up next, how about the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Eric Almirola. Now, initially, Eric Almirola was going to retire at the end of 2022, but in the later portion around Daytona weekend in August, he announced that he was going to be returning to the 10 car. Eric Almirola had a little bit of disappointing year and hopes to have a good year. Now, this could be Eric Almirola's final season as well, as Gene Haas indicated in October that Eric Almirola could retire at the end of the season. It's definitely going to be one thing to watch for sure to see if Eric Almirola is going to retire or not. But we'll see what happens, and hopefully he can perform with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2023. Up next, how about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin is in a contract year with Joe Gibbs Racing, and last year was not the greatest year for Denny Hamlin, but near the end of the year, he bounced back and had the best average finisher drivers in the field in the NASCAR playoffs. Denny Hamlin will have to see if he returns in 2024, which I think he likely will return in 2024. But he looks to bounce back after kind of a disappointing season. Yes, he did score 2 victories, but it was kind of disappointing for his standards. Denny Hamlin looks to bounce back and have a much better year in 2023. Up next, how about the 12 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Ryan Blaney, who signed a multi-year contract extension with the team. Ryan Blaney had a really good year, except he failed to win a race, but he was extremely consistent and came close to winning throughout the season. I think Ryan Blaney is going to be a championship threat this year. I think he's going to be up front. That 12 team looked really, really confident throughout the year. He just failed to win. I think he'll win multiple races, be up front, and be consistent throughout the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 13 car for Kaulig Racing? Yes, heard that right. Kaulig Racing is expanding to a third part-time entry in 2023, and this will be driven by NASCAR Xfinity Series rookie Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith will make an attempt to make the Daytona 500 2023 in the number 13 car, and also run 4 other races, including the All-Star race. Chandler Smith is one of the biggest prospects and upcoming talents currently in the lower series at the moment, and he's definitely one to watch, and I think he will be a threat to make the Daytona 500. If he makes the Daytona 500, I could see him winning the race. He's going to be a threat for sure, and he's definitely one to watch as he'll make his NASCAR Cup Series debut or attempt to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut in the Daytona 500. Up next, how about the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Chase Briscoe, who just a few weeks ago announced a multi-year contract extension, a long-term deal with Stewart-Haas Racing. Chase Briscoe nearly made the championship 4 in shocking fashion and ended the year off really good, but struggled throughout the regular season in 2022. The goal for Chase Briscoe is to run up front a little more consistently through the middle portion of the year and start the year off the way he ended 2022. Hope he can do really good in 2023 and improve and make that 14 car a much better team and be more consistent and be up front as much as he can in 2023. Up next, how about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing? This car is going to be a rotation car in 2023. This weekend, Jay Gilly is going to drive the 15 car into Busch Light Clash, and I would have to imagine he's going to run in more races throughout the year. And it was also announced that Riley Herbst is going to run in all the super speed races, including in the Daytona 500 with Sonny D on the car. This is a great opportunity for Riley Herbst to get some experience in the Cup Series because he could jump up to the Cup Series full-time, maybe with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024. This is a really good move. I would think that Cole Custer could get an opportunity to drive this car, and probably other drivers are going to get an opportunity, like a Joey Gase will get an opportunity to drive this car throughout the season in 2023. Up next, how about the 16 car for Kaulig Racing? This will once again, and actually for the first time in a full-time basis since 2018, AJ Allmendinger is jumping up to drive full-time in the Cup Series. AJ Allmendinger coming into 2023 is going to be a dark horse for the championship. Near the end of 2022, he was running up front on all different types of tracks. Didn't matter if it was a road course, a short track, or whatever it was, he was running up front, and he looks to have a really good year in 2023 in that number 16 car. I think he's going to be underdog for the championship. I think he could win a couple races, and I think this 16 car is going to be fast throughout the year. I'd watch for AJ Allmendinger because I think he's going to be really strong throughout the 2023 NASCAR season. Up next, how about the 17 car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Chris Buescher. In 2022, Chris Buescher had an up-and-down year, had a lot of good runs at short tracks and road courses, and also ended up winning at Bristol in the fall. But he also had some not-so-great performances. In 2023, he looks to improve, try to win maybe a couple races with the RFK organization, and looks to be a little more consistent and be up front throughout the 2023 season. We'll see what Chris Buescher can do. I think he's underdog for the championship, and he's definitely one to watch for a potential playoff berth for 2023. Up next, how about the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Martin Truex Jr. Now, we all initially thought that Martin Truex Jr. was going to retire at the end of 2022 and not come back in 2023, but things changed in late June when he announced at Nashville that he was going to be returning. Now, Martin Truex Jr. failed to win a race and actually failed to make the playoffs as well in 2022. So the goal for Martin Truex Jr. is to not only win, but make the playoffs as well. I think Martin Truex Jr. definitely has a chance to get it done. We'll see what he can do in 2023. This also could be his last year in the Cup Series because he could retire at the end of 2023, but he also could return in 2024 as well. That's one thing we're going to have to watch throughout the season. Up next, how about the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell had a really strong year in 2022, scoring 3 victories, including 2 clutch victories. I think Christopher Bell is starting to emerge as a candidate and someone to watch for, and I believe the future of Joe Gibbs Racing, and not really Ty Gibbs, but I think Christopher Bell is the future of JGR. He's going to be a driver to watch for many years to come. I think he's going to be up front for many years to come, and I think he'll do a lot of great things with the Joe Gibbs Racing team for many years. Up next, how about the 21 car for the Wood Brothers? This will once again be driven by Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton's rookie year in the Cup Series in 2022 was very disappointing. Did not have a lot of good runs. Only think he got 1 top 5 or 2 top 5s throughout the year, and both of those were not on pure speed. It was basically on luck. He needs to show some signs of improvement in 2023, and I think he'll be a little better in 2023 than he was in 2022, but I'm not expecting him to really set the world on fire in 2023. Hoping he proved me wrong, but he didn't do fantastic in 2022, to be honest. Up next, how about the 22 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano is coming off a very strong season, scoring 4 victories and winning the championship in 2022, winning his 2nd NASCAR Cup Series championship. Joey Logano will probably be a championship threat, though I do think he'll have a little bit of a championship hangover, considering Joey Logano every odd year tends to perform worse than he does in the even years. I think he'll be an underdog for the championship, actually be a championship threat, but I think he only wins maybe 1 or 2 races. But I think Joey Logano will be fast throughout the year and will be looking to have a strong year in 2023. Hopes to have a good year. Up next, how about the 23 car for 23XI Racing? This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. At the beginning of 2022, Bubba Wallace really struggled outside of a couple really strong runs, including a great run in the Daytona 500. But by the end of the year, outside of him getting suspended at Las Vegas after a confrontation with Kyle Larson, he ended up having a really strong end of the year and actually won a race at Kansas. I think in 2023, Bubba Wallace is really going to improve. I think he'll be an underdog for the championship this year, and I think that 23 car is going to be very fast. So I think Bubba Wallace is definitely one to watch throughout 2023, and I think he's definitely one to watch out for this upcoming season. Up next, how about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by William Byron, who signed a multi-year contract extension through 2025. William Byron had a Jekyll and Hyde season. Beginning of the year in 2022 was really good, scored 2 victories. On the other hand, the second half of the year and really the summer stretch only got 1 top 10 in like 17 races. But by the end of the year, he really started shaping up to be up front a lot more. William Byron's definitely going to have to start making or breaking and winning more races consistently. If he can do that, I think he'll be in really great shape for the long term. We'll see what happens with William Byron, but he hopes to improve, and we'll see if he can improve in 2023. Up next, how about the 26 car for Team Haysbert? Now, Haysbert Racing is unclear what the plans are for this team, but I would expect the 26 car is going to return, but for a few races. I think they'll return for all the road course races, and if you want my prediction, I think Danny Kvyat is going to be the driver. Danny Kvyat wants to make more NASCAR starts. I know it just announced he's going to run for Premier Racing on a full-time basis with the World Endurance Championship, but there's going to be some time off where he could get an opportunity to run, so I think that's what's going to happen with Team Haysbert. Up next, how about the 27 car for Team Haysbert? I expect him to return, and I think Larice Hasemans is going to drive this car. Larice Hasemans made multiple starts with Team Haysbert last year and had some pretty decent performances. Well, not great performances, but he did the best he could with what he had. I think Larice will do a very solid job driving for his own organization. Of course, his father, Tony Hasenberg, owns the organization. So I think Larice Hasemans will do a very solid job and will do the best that he can. Up next, how about the 30 car for 3F Racing? 3F Racing is expected to enter the Cup Series in 2023 on a part-time basis. Their debut is expected to be at Atlanta. While nothing is confirmed on what drivers they will have, I predict that Justin Allgaier is going to be the driver. They're looking at Justin Allgaier as a potential possibility, and they're looking to run maybe around 5 to 6 races in the 2023 season. I'm glad to see that a new team is showing up in 2023, and we'll see how they ended up performing. Up next, how about the 31 car for Kaulig Racing? This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley had a pretty solid year in 2022. In fact, a pretty underrated season. Had a great start going at the Clash, but unfortunately got crashed by Kyle Larson. Was really up front a lot of times, and near the end of the year, started showing a lot of great performances near the second half of the season. I think in 2023, Justin Haley could be a contender for wins. I think he's someone definitely to watch throughout the season, and I think he could be a contender to be up front in many races throughout the 2023 season in that number 31 car. Up next, how about the 33 car for Richard Childress Racing? Now, Wallstock confirmed Richard Childress Racing is going to run a third car. Richard has himself indicated they might run a third car. If they do decide to run a third car in 2023, my prediction is that it's going to be Austin Hill will run maybe a few select races. Yes, he'll be driving for another team, but I think he'll get an opportunity. And I also think Sheldon Creed will get an opportunity as well to drive this car. Sheldon Creed has not made any cup starts yet, so they're probably going to want to move him up and get an opportunity. We'll have to wait and see what happens. We might see this car come back in 2023. Up next, how about the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. Now, Michael McDowell in 2023 is going to have a new crew chief, as he'll have Travis Peterson in 2023. Michael McDowell had a pretty big breakout year in 2022. We ended up having, I think, like 2 or 3 top 5s and like 11 or 12 top 10s, which was really, really strong for Michael McDowell standards. We'll have to wait and see how Michael McDowell can perform with the new crew chief, but the hope is that he can perform with the new crew chief and be a lot more consistent. Up next, how about the 36 car for Front Row Motorsports? Well, the number has not officially been announced for Zane Smith. The indication is that Zane Smith will probably likely drive the number 36 car for Front Row Motorsports, and Front Row has indicated. It could still be 35, but a lot of indications are that it will be number 36. Zane Smith is going to run around 4 to 5 Cup Series races, including in the Daytona 500 as well. Zane Smith is probably the hottest prospect in the lower series currently at the moment. He has already made a Cup Series start, did that as substitution for Chris Buescher at Gateway. I do believe that Zane Smith is one of the future stars. He could go to Front Row full-time in 2024, but he's definitely being watched by a lot of teams to see how he ends up performing. So we'll see what happens and see if he can perform in 2023 in those select starts. Up next, how about the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen had a pretty iffy year, but also did better than other drivers have done in that 38 car in the past. Had a couple standout performances at the Indy Road Course, did a really strong job, and I think he could perform better in 2023. He also have a new crew chief this year, as Ryan Burgundy is going to be the crew chief for him this season. Todd Gillen looks to have a much better season, a much more confident year, and looks to be up front a lot more consistently in 2023. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. We'll see if he can get it done, though, in 2023. Up next, how about the 41 car for Stewart Haas Racing? There's a new change coming in the 41 car in 2023, as Ryan Preece is going to drive the 41 car in 2023, replacing Cole Custer, who gets demoted to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Ryan Preece had a really strong truck season last year where he had basically ran 11 races and did not finish worse than 11th and won a race at Nashville. I think Ryan Preece is a dark horse to make the playoffs. That 41 car struggled really the last couple of years. I think he will be the best performer that SHR's had in that 41 car since Kurt Busch drove the car. I think Ryan Preece will do a very solid job. He's got some nice looking scenes for 2023, by the way. But I think Ryan Preece will be up front pretty solidly, and I think he'll make the 41 car pretty good in 2023. Up next, how about the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club? That's right. Petty GMS Motorsports will basically become Legacy Motor Club. And Noah Grayson will be driving the 42 car, replacing the driver, Ty Dillon. Noah Grayson had a really strong Xfinity Series season, scoring 8 victories and basically making the championship 4, just getting beat by Ty Gibbs at the end of the day. I think Noah Grayson is going to be someone that I think is going to have a little bit of a learning curve in 2023. But I'll have Herb Barber this year, which will really help him. And Luke Lambert is going to be his crew chief, which I think will help Noah Grayson this season. I think you're going to see the 42 team pretty solid. And I think it will be up front at times, but probably be also, though, better than Ty Dillon. Up next, how about the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club? This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones in 2022, I should say, had a really strong year, scoring a win in the Southern 500 and was up front and getting better as the year progressed. Eric Jones, I think, is an underdog to make the playoffs. Would not shock or surprise you if he does make the playoffs in 2023. I think he could have a really good year with the 43 team. He's going to have the same crew chief he had last year, which is Dave Ellens. They signed a multi-year contract extension for him through 2025. I think that's going to help a lot, and I think it will help Eric Jones in 2023. Up next, how about the 44 car for NY Racing? Now, while nothing's confirmed about NY Racing at this point, I would have to imagine NY Racing could return in 2023. And if I would predict, I would have to think it will be either Greg Biffle or maybe someone like a Matt DiBenedetto perhaps gets an opportunity to drive this car if NY Racing decides to show up. It's one ride we're kind of waiting on to see what happens if it does decide to show up. If it does, I think it'll be one of those two drivers who could drive that car in 2023. That's just my prediction, though. I'm predicting maybe Matt DiBenedetto gets an opportunity. If not, it would be Greg Biffle. Up next, how about the 45 car for 23XI Racing? There's a new driver driving the 45 car in 2023 as Tyler Reddick moves away from Rich Schultz Racing to drive the 45 car for 2023. He'll have Billy Scott as a crew chief, and sponsors are starting to fly through the roof for Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick, I think, will be a really big championship contender. I think the 45 car is going to be really strong. 23XI is going to be a much faster organization, and I think Tyler Reddick is going to perform very, very good in 2023 and be a championship threat in that number 45 car. Up next, how about the 47 car for JTG Doherty Racing? This will once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had a very disappointing year. He had one point where he had 4 straight top 10s. The rest of the year was very disappointing, had the most DNFs, so he's really going to have to improve in 2023. But I think there's a chance he can improve in 2023 because Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will have a new crew chief. Mike Kelly's coming to work with him in 2023, which I think could really help him this season. We'll see what happens to Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and we'll see if he can improve in the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman had kind of a disappointing year in 2022. He got injured near the end of the year, did come back at Phoenix, but he did get a win at Las Vegas early in the year. Now, he's going to have a new crew chief this year, which I think could help him, and it's Blake Harris. It's also a big year for Alex Bowman because this is a contract year for Alex Bowman. So he's really going to have to step up his performance and run as well as he can if he wants to stick around long term. I think Alex Bowman has what it takes. I don't think he makes the playoffs this year, but I think he will do good enough to get that contract extension, and I think he will do a solid job in 2023. Up next, how about the 50 car for the Money Team? Now, we've had some updates on the Money Team as of recently, as they are not going to be entering the Daytona 500 for Julio Castro-Neves. Castro-Neves has ruled out running the Daytona 500 completely, but there still is a possibility that Connor Daly could run the 50 car in the Daytona 500, and there's also a possibility that we could see maybe some other drivers get an opportunity in the 50 car. The goal is for them to run some races with Connor Daly, and that's the goal for the Money Team heading into the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing? This will once again be driven by Cody Ware on a full-time basis. Cody Ware had kind of a disappointing season, but also he did improve. He actually gained like 2 or 3 positions on an average finish, which is a huge upgrade in a performance in some areas. Cody Ware looks to improve in 2023. I think Cody's a decent driver. I think he can get it done behind the wheel. We'll see what he does. Hopefully he can improve in 2023 and maybe be a little more competitive in that number 51 car this upcoming season. Up next, how about the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? That's right, the number 18 car is being renumbered to the 54 car. It'll be the first time since 1992 or 1991, I believe, or whatever year Joe Gibbs Racing came into play, they will not use the 18 car. In the first race, they will not run the 18 car since 1994 at Charlotte when the car failed to qualify. I think Ty Gibbs is going to be someone that really is interesting to watch. He's going to be one to watch if he loses his temper and has some anger trouble because he did have some trouble and was getting frustrated in the Cup Series last year. It is his rookie year, though. He's going to have a lot of pressure on him. I think he'll win the Rookie of the Year this year, but he will have some pressure on him going into 2023. Can he win? That's one thing to watch. I don't think he'll win this year, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Up next, we're talking about the 62 car for Beard Motorsports. Beard Motorsports is returning in 2023, and they will have Austin Hill behind the wheel of the 62 car. Austin Hill will run 6 races in 2023, the Daytona 500, the other Daytona race, both Talladega races, and they will run at Chicago Street Course and also Michigan. Austin, in my opinion, is one of the best up-and-coming talents in the sport. I think he's done a really good job in Xfinity. He was an underdog in Xfinity last year, ran really well, got 2 victories, and I think he could be a championship threat in Xfinity this year, and maybe an underdog for some races well throughout the year because he's a good super speedway racer. He will be one to watch, and I think he will be a threat in that 6-2 car to make the Daytona 500 as well. Up next, talk about the 66 car for NBM Motorsports. Well, NBM Motorsports has not indicated their plans. They kind of announce their plans usually at the last minute with the Daytona 500 coming up in less than 3 weeks. They probably will announce their plans without in the next week or so if they're going to show up or not. If they do return, I would have to think that Timmy Hill is going to be the driver. Timmy Hill has driven a 6-6 car in the past, and I think he will be the driver of that car if they do decide to enter. And we'll see how many races they do enter if they decide to show up, but I think they will show up, and I think it will be a driver like Timmy Hill behind the wheel of that car. Up next, talk about the 67 car for 2311 Racing. It got officially confirmed that 2311 is going to run a third car in 2023, and they're going to have Travis Pastrana, who will be attempting to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut in the number 67 car. Eric Phillips is going to be the crew chief, and Black Rifle Coffee will be the sponsor. This is the first time that Travis Pastrana has raced in the Cup Series. He's raced in NASCAR in general in the last couple years, so he will have to make the Daytona 500. Also, there's a chance, a possibility that Kurt Busch could come back, and this would be the car that he would run in 2023 if he's medically cleared. So Kurt Busch could still have a possibility of returning in 2023. I'm very happy to see that 2311 is expanding their program in 2023, and they look to have a much better year and look to hopefully make the field with that 67 car this season. Up next, how about the 77 car for Spire Motorsports? This car will be full-time in 2023 with Ty Dillon behind the wheel as Ty Dillon moves away from Legacy Motor Club to drive the number 77 car. Now, this is definitely a downgrade for Ty Dillon going into the year because I don't think the 77 car is the fastest organization in the world. He will have Ferris Motors on his car in 2023, so that might be able to help him with the sponsorship and funding. He hopes to have a really good year. We'll see what Ty Dillon can do. I'm not sure, though, he's going to have a good year because it hasn't been great performances with that ride in the past. So we'll see what he can do, though, in 2023. Up next, how about the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports? Now, Live Fast Motorsports is making changes in 2023 as they'll be switching from Fords to Chevys in 2023. BJ McCall will run the Busch Light Clash in multiple races, including the Daytona 500. Josh Blickey is going to run select races as well, including a Circuit of the Americas. It would not shock or surprise if Anthony Alfredo gets an opportunity to drive a 78 car as well, as there's been leaks coming out about a Dew White's NASCAR Cup Series next-gen car that have been showing up. And, of course, Anthony Alfredo is joining BJ McCall Motorsports in Xfinity this year. Live Fast Motorsports looks to improve, looks to have a good year, and we'll see what they can do in the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club? Legacy Motor Club is expanding to a third car in 2023, but of course it's for Jimmy Johnson, who is now a co-owner of the organization. Jimmy Johnson will run around 5 to 6 NASCAR Cup Series races, including in 2023, including in the Daytona 500, where Carvana will be on that car. The rest schedule has not been announced for that car. But we could see this car in more races as Casey Mears has indicated that he wants to return to NASCAR. He wants to get to that 500th career Cup Series start. I think 300 or 500, can't remember exactly, but Casey Mears wants to return. And if he does return in 2023, I predict he'll be behind the wheel of this car. If you want my prediction, I think Jimmy Johnson wins the pole for the Daytona 500. I think he's definitely one to watch for sure in those races. I don't think he runs up front a lot, but I think Jimmy has a chance of winning the pole for the Daytona 500. Up next, how about the 91 car for Trackhouse, which of course is a Project 91 entry. Now, Project 91 will not enter the Daytona 500 in 2023, but we do know that they're going to run select races and they're getting close to announcing potential drivers. Shane Van Gisbergen's name has come to mind. Maybe Cashin Evans runs once this year. He won the Rolex 24. Maybe he could run a road course race. Maybe they could bring someone else in. Maybe perhaps like some other drivers. Maybe like Lewis Hamilton comes out of nowhere. Maybe Jenson Button. Jenson Button wants to run. Romain Grosjean would not shock or surprise if he gets an opportunity. We'll have to wait and see what happens who decides to drive the Project 91 car, but it's going to run all the road course races in 2023, and we'll see who gets behind the wheel of that car. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. Once again, it's being driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez had a really strong year in 2022, one of the most improved drivers, scoring 1 victory at Sonoma and making it to the round of 12 and nearly made it to the round of 8, if not for his power steering belt unfortunately failing. I think Daniel Suarez will be an underdog for the title this year. I think that 99 team is going to be really strong throughout the year, and he's definitely going to be one to watch in that number 99 car throughout the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. I think he's definitely one to watch. So, that is the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series driver lineup. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel, notifications on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links are below that, and comment below your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series driver lineup? What are your thoughts on today's video? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we should have a NASCAR news video dropping on the channel early in the day. On Saturday, there might be 2 videos, a paint scheme video with all the paint schemes that have been confirmed, and also I might be doing some reactions to the pole qualifying as well, and whoever wins the pole is the fastest in the time trials. And then Sunday, I might have multiple videos, reactions to the heats potentially, and also we'll do a review of the Busch Light Clash as well on the channel after the race. Monday will probably be a NASCAR news video, and we've got a lot of content on the way as we get close to the start of the 2023 season. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.